Okay. Good morning. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices. Also, while masks are no longer required or mandatory, please feel free to wear one if you believe it's necessary for your own well-being. With 6 board members present, I'd like to call today's meeting to order. In addition to the 6 board members, we also have our ex officio members, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Daniel Hassel, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you all for joining us. As the first order of business, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and join me for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the heels of the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to take a moment to wish a happy belated Veterans Day to all members, past and present, of our military, and especially to those who work in the gaming industry. On behalf of myself and my fellow commissioners, we want you to know that we appreciate you, we honor you, and we thank you for your service. By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, November 15th, to discuss personnel matters, pending litigation, and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. Now we will hear from Valley Forge Casino Resort on their Category 3 license renewal. I would ask if there are any non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today in this proceeding that they please stand and be sworn by the court reporter.
You'll just raise your right hand, and you swear from the testimony you give today, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Thank you. I'd also ask anyone who is going to speak to please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to your presentation. Valley Forge, you may begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, ex officio members. We are pleased to be back before you this morning for Valley Forge's license renewal here.
Counselor, could you identify yourself for the court reporter, please?
My name is Michael Fabius. I'm at the law firm Ballard's Bar representing Valley Forge Convention Center Partners. Before the hearing started, I provided the court reporter with the spelling of my name and the spelling of everyone's name who might be appearing before us today. So he should have that. As you know, we were last before most of you in April at Valley Forge's public input hearing in Lower Merion Township. At that time, we took the opportunity to provide the public with an overview of the property's leadership, operations, culture, diversity, and economic benefits. And we were pleased to receive the input from the community where we are proud to operate. Here with me again is Ron Bailey, Valley Forge's Vice President and General Manager. Before I turn this over to Ron to provide the board with a similar presentation, I want to acknowledge Yuri Clinton, who's sitting to Ron's right. Yuri is Boyd's Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary. And as you know, Boyd Gaming acquired Valley Forge from its original ownership in September 2008. And Yuri is here to express Boyd's support for the property and the Commonwealth. While our presentation today is intended to focus on the property and the operations here in Pennsylvania, we are all here and available for questions. And with that, I'll turn this over to Ron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board. We'll just start. Prior to that, I'd like to introduce a couple members of my leadership team that are also here representing. Willie D'Artez, who's my Chief of Security, Donna Hogan, who's my Vice President of Human Resources, and Janet Moggins, who's my Head of Compliance. Additionally, just to highlight our leadership team as well, at the top, the picture there, Dedrin Bailey, Vice President of Marketing, Joyce Sarian, Vice President of Ops, Tom Schoaf, Director of IT, Remy Odiebo, our Director of Hotel, Jeff George, our Director of Food and Beverage, Sybil Davis, our Director of Sales, and recently added Frank Palmieri, who is our Vice President of Facilities. Just a brief overview of Valley Forge. It's a 36,000 square foot casino. We have 850 slots table games, 445 hotel rooms, 100,000 square feet of meeting and convention space, 6 restaurants, and 5 nightlife venues. The property itself opened in 1973 as Valley Forge Plaza. Casino gaming was introduced in 2012 as Valley Forge Casino Resort, acquired by Boyd Gaming in 2018, September. Investing in the Commonwealth, the acquisition itself was $280 million. Additionally, there was a $23.8 million one-time licensing fee, $10 million sports betting licensing fee, $10 million iGaming licensing fee, $2.5 million slot expansion fee, and a $1.35 million change of control fee. Additionally, since the acquisition of the property, Boyd has and Valley Forge has paid $125 million in wages and benefits, $489 million in adjusted gaming revenue, over $156 million in tax payments, and $71 million spent with Pennsylvania businesses. Capital investments, since Boyd Gaming has acquired the property, building infrastructure and improvements of $10.1 million, slot machine purchases of $6.8, furniture and equipment of $2.6 million, computer and IT equipment of $22.6 million. Additionally, $2.7 million in 2022 for our capital budget. Also, I'd like to briefly talk about our partnership with FanDuel. We have an 1,800 square foot sports book, 7 betting windows, and 16 betting kiosks. We also offer online sports betting offered through the FanDuel mobile app. There's been $377 million in sports gaming revenue to date and $135 million in tax revenue generated. Again, with the partnership with FanDuel, FanDuel launched a FanDuel-branded online casino in collaboration with our Valley Forge license in 2020. FanDuel also launched a Stardust-branded online casino in collaboration with Valley Forge's license in 2021. Again, $364 million in online casino revenue to date and $169 million in tax revenue generated. Responding to the pandemic, as many other casinos in the Commonwealth, Valley Forge closed March 13th, 2020. However, we continue to pay our all team members through April 10th, benefits through reopening in June 2020. Additionally, we've donated $35,000 in surplus food to local food banks in March and December of 2020. And also a full pay continuation for our team members during the second Valley Forge closure, which was December 12th, 2020 through January 4th, 2021. Regarding safety, we also implemented the Boyd Clean, which is a set of comprehensive health and safety protocols. We've hosted 4 on-site vaccination clinics, and we had mandatory masking policy enforced through March of this year. Community is also obviously an important part of being in Montgomery County and the Commonwealth. I won't read the mission statement to you, but I'll just highlight 2 parts of that. Operate with a highest level degree of integrity, and to provide opportunities for all while we support and enhance our communities. Those are really 2 of the key foundations of Boyd Gaming and Valley Forge Casino. Briefly, I'll talk about our culture a little bit. However, it's a unique and important part of who we are and how we represent the property. $831,000 in bonus payments to frontline team members last year. We do have a universal open door policy. The entire senior leadership of the property is highly visible and engaged throughout the property. We have a competitive pay and benefits package. Team Member of the Year recognition. We do scholarships, tuition reimbursements, and additionally, we do student loan repayment. In regards to our team member demographics and diversity, you can see up top there as far as how we are in relation to Montgomery County. 41% of our team members are women. 89% of our team members are Pennsylvania state residents. So, just to show the effort or the commitment to diversity at the property. In 2015, 13% of Valley Forge's directors and above were minority. Today, we're at 55%. In 2015, additionally, 22% of our directors and above were women. Today, we're at 45%. It's truly one of the most diverse leadership teams in the gaming industry. Talking a little bit more about supporting our local and diverse businesses. Spent in-state $10.2 million in 2021. That was 304 Pennsylvania-based vendors utilized. $1.1 million spent with MBEs and WBEs. That's about 10.8% of the biddable total, up from 10.3 of the biddable total in 2019. We used 2019 as a comparison versus 2020, obviously with the pandemic. $11.36 million spent in 2022. That's 333 Pennsylvania-based vendors. $2.4 million spent with MBEs and WBEs. 15.5% of the biddable total. That's up 10.8% of the biddable total in 2021. As I mentioned earlier, we're very involved in our community. 2021, we've donated $127,000 to nonprofits. That includes $50,000 in pandemic relief campaign in June of 2021. $60,000 donated to nonprofits in 2022. $343,000 donated since 2018. Additionally, the Upper Merion Township Board of Community Assistance, basically the overview is we advise the Board of Supervisors on providing assistance with monies received from the Valley Forge Casino Resort. It is a nonprofit that directly impacts residents of the Upper Merion Township. The scholarships awarded to noteworthy Upper Merion Township high school seniors. I'm proud to say that since 2015, we've donated $1.1 million and to 225 organizations assisted and 155 scholarships awarded. Protecting our children and our community is a critical component of who we are and what we're doing, and we've partnered with, obviously, with PGCB and state police, but Valley Forge has committed $775,000 to implement an industry-leading program to mitigate unattended children at our property. We're going to continue to increase those resources and technology to identify unattended children in an effort to be proactive in addressing these issues going forward. Just to highlight a few things that we've done, we've reinforced team member involvement with incentives for detection. We've added infrared IR 4K cameras, refreshed and enhanced our unattended child signage plan, additional support from outside security and the Upper Merion Police Department, and we've extended surveillance cover in casino towers, or we are extending surveillance coverage in our casino towers this year. Additional infrared cameras to our Stardust Tower as well, 4K cameras, which will be done this year as well. That's just a brief shot of what an IR camera versus a traditional camera does. In total darkness, when you turn on an IR camera, you have much more visibility in low light areas. We've placed those cameras in based on the data of where unattended minors have been located, and so we have better visibility in those areas. This is just a couple of shots of the enhanced signage program that we have here at the property. It's throughout the property and every area throughout the property to make sure nobody misses the message that we're serious about unattended minors. Track record of partnership. Commitment to being an employer of choice. We have a proven track record of promoting diversity, a track record of supporting local and diverse businesses, and we're active supporter of local nonprofits. We've made significant reinvestments since the 2018 acquisition, with more to come. Our Unattended Children program demonstrates our commitment to industry leadership. We're proud to be a partner of the Montgomery County community and the Upper Merion Township. Any questions?
Any questions from Enforcement Council?
Yes, Chair.
You may proceed.
Elizabeth Boehm, Boehm. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What percentage of your employees are RAMP certified?
Sure. All of the team members, 100% of the team members that are required to be RAMP certified are certified.
And is Valley Forge facing any current staffing, hiring, or retention challenges?
I don't think it's any more unique than the rest of the industry, but yes, we certainly are in that situation where I wouldn't say necessarily as much retention, but hiring has been a significant challenge for the property.
And can I draw your attention to slide 10 of the presentation, please?
Certainly.
Responding to the pandemic. Are all amenities at Valley Forge now open,
Yeah.
available?
Yes, so all amenities outside of Valley Parking are reopened. We are working on a plan to open Valley in the near term.
And slide 11, please. Could you please explain Boyd Clean, and are these protocols still in place?
Sure. The overwhelming majority of the protocols are still in place outside of table games with the chips, the cleaning of the chips. But the Boyd Clean program is a program with, that we used to combat the pandemic. We changed the chemical program that we have. We also changed the frequency in which we clean. In addition, we've also added staff to our EVS team to ensure that we have the time and to clean all areas. Additionally, we have changed the uniforms of our EVS team members to make sure that the community and the team and the customers that are coming through see the visibility of the team members so they know that we are actively cleaning out all areas.
And can I draw your attention to slide 7, committed to reinvestment? Of the capital budgeted for 2022, how much was dedicated to the unattended minors and overall safety?
Sure. So our overall budget was around $800,000 for the unattended minors. So we spent about almost $800,000 year to date for that program.
And slides 20 and 22, how pervasive, throughout the property is the unattended minor signage?
Sure. So it is everywhere. It is in the rooms. It is on the televisions. It is in the parking lots. It is at every entrance. You'd be very hard pressed to find a location on the property where we're not communicating to the public that we're serious about unattended minors.
And as a result of these measures, what have you noticed regarding matters involving unattended minors?
Sure. So two things. One, the numbers are up for catching unattended minors. I think the numbers have increased, which we anticipated because the team is laser focused on that. What I will tell you is that this year, out of 36 unattended minors, we have 30 of them were in under 4 minutes. And so the focus and intensity that the team has put forth to catching the parents has been pretty extraordinary. And, the overwhelming majority of the issues that come up are parents that come up. We've identified that there's a child with them, and we let them know that our policy. Then they go and find a place to park, and we're already, once we've told you, we're watching you. And so we're able to address those situations very quickly and take care of it.
Thank you. And last question. What, if any, impact does Valley Forge believe skill games are having on Valley Forge's revenue?
Sure.
This is Michael Fabius again. I might try to tackle that. I mean, while there are a number of factors that impact the Commonwealth casinos, we certainly contend that the so-called skill games have undoubtedly impacted Commonwealth casinos. Logically speaking, this impact on casinos from skill games should come as no surprise. If slot machine patrons can play at a local bar, tavern, or convenience store, that competes with trips to the casino. And of course, that comes at a serious and real price to the casino operators and the Commonwealth. Since the Commonwealth draws a 52% tax rate from the legal regulated casinos the slot machines in the casinos. In addition to that competition, the proliferation of skill games across the Commonwealth has other adverse effects that should also be recognized. First, unregulated skill games undermine and undo public confidence in the integrity of gaming. The public cannot reasonably be expected to make a distinction between licensed, regulated slot machines that go through the rigorous testing and oversight that the Game Control Board deploys, and their unregulated, untested counterparts. This is especially true when some skill game operators attempt to position their machines against or in the vicinity of Pennsylvania lottery terminals, and/or in cases of using official sounding names, like incorporating the name of the state, the name Pennsylvania, in the untested, unregulated skill game. Second, and most concerningly, there are no responsible gaming or underage gaming limitations and protocols in place where in the establishments while skill games are available. You've just heard from Ron that Valley Forge investing $800,000 in unintended minor prevention. That skill games operators just can't match that and won't match that. The simple fact is this: putting slot machine type devices like skill games and associated ticket redemption units filled with cash in unprotected, unsurveilled spaces is not a smart idea. That is exactly why the General Assembly, exercising wise public policy choices, has on multiple occasions rejected the distributed gaming concept. Without question, the best and safest place for slot machine type devices to operate is in the highly regulated casino environment that maintains multiple layers of testing, monitoring, and security, including the board's personnel, the casino security team, and extensive video surveillance. So,
Thank you. No further questions.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I just had one question regarding the protection of minors. You mentioned that you have incentives for detection to staff members, and what type of incentives do you have?
It varies, but from gift cards to parties for the department, and some sort of recognition our team member of the month.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mustio?
I'll just follow up, follow up on your comments about the skill games. Do you have any indication or data that might relate to the reduction? I know you said logically it would make sense in revenues and the impact it might have on the property tax relief for residents of Pennsylvania.
I don't have direct causation data at the ready, but
Okay, thank you.
Langdon, go ahead.
I just have one question. We often talk when we talk about minors and cars, how casinos will evict the parent or whatever when we're talking about maybe evicting, putting them on the involuntary exclusion list. Can you talk a little bit about the eviction process at a casino? Because I think people don't realize that there's usually that step happens almost immediately.
Sure. So we look at each case on an individual basis, but overwhelmingly, the majority of the time they are evicted, 86 from the property. All of the instances, pretty much if they're in the vehicle, if it's caught in the vehicle, they're evicted from the property. If it's, I'll give you an example. The only real cases where something like that's not happening is if, there's a sporting event and they tell the kid goes upstairs to get a bag of chips or something like that to come back downstairs. We warn them and say, we explain to them, we show the signs and let them know that those, we don't accept that here and that's not allowed. But overwhelmingly, the individuals are 86 or evicted from the property.
Actually, I have a question.
Certainly.
And I first would like to applaud you for your efforts with unattended children. And also for your efforts in increasing diversity. However, when I was looking at the materials that were presented to us, I noticed that of all the monies that are spent on construction projects, $0 go to women or small and diverse firms. I'm wondering what you might be doing to address that particular void.
Sure. I think that's a great question. I think there's absolutely opportunities on the total procurement side to address that. I'll have to look deeper on the construction side of that. We will hopefully in the next couple of years, 2023, 2024, we'll look to continue to reimagine the property, and we will ensure that there are opportunities for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses to bid on those.
And even if they don't bid on them individually,
Sure.
I would suggest you encourage the majority firms to partner with the minority firms so that they can get some experience and some work out of the project. It doesn't
Agreed.
have to be that they actually win the bid themselves.
Yes, ma'am, and there's certainly an opportunity because there's usually a general contractor and then there's projects within that. And so
Exactly.
there's certainly opportunities to get that done.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Commissioner Mazana Diaz, go ahead.
you. First of all, I do want to commend you again for the program that you have with regard to the unattended minors. I think that's great, and I'm glad that you're sort of leading the way so that others can follow. The question I have is following up on the minority and women-owned businesses. I'd like to really understand the types of contracts that they do have. So are they professional contracts? Are they service contracts? Are there foods contracts? To get a better sense in terms of where those dollars are spent, that would be helpful in
Okay.
terms of the women and minority-owned businesses.
Certainly. If you would allow me to put something together for you to kind of detail out what a better breakdown of that for you, I'd love to get the opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much for following up. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Anything else from the board? If not, Mr. Fabius, do you have anything else you'd like to present?
One housekeeping item with, unless Office of Enforcement Counsel has any objection, we'd like to just move the slide deck into the record.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. Enforcement Counsel, do you have a presentation?
We do not have a formal presentation at this point, but I do have a statement.
Well, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair Smiler, members of the board. My name is Elizabeth Boehm, again, B-O-E-H-M, on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. In advance of today's hearing, the Office of Enforcement Counsel provided Valley Forge and the board with updates to information that was previously provided at Valley Forge's public input hearing on April 27th, 2022. These updates were generated by the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Gaming Enforcement, the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Liquor Control Enforcement, and the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue. The Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Gaming Enforcement arrest statistics summary for the Valley Forge Casino Resort does not indicate any areas of significance. No actions have been taken by the Bureau of Liquor Enforcement against Valley Forge since the public input hearing, and the Department of Revenue has confirmed that Valley Forge's tax accounts are current. OEC requests that these documents, marked OEC Exhibit 1A, OEC Exhibit 2A, and OEC Exhibit 4A respectively, are admitted into the record. The Office of Enforcement Counsel would like to note for the record that it has submitted the final background investigation reports to the board, and the Bureau of Licensing has submitted the renewal suitability report to the board, which encompasses reports from all of the necessary offices and bureaus under the board's jurisdiction. Again, we do not have a formal presentation and do not intend to offer any witnesses, but the Office of Enforcement Counsel is available for any questions that the board may have regarding the information provided.
Any questions from Valley
No
Forge?
questions from us.
Any objection to the admission of the
No objections.
documents? Okay. Any questions from the board for Enforcement Counsel? No? All right. Would you like to make a closing statement, Mr. Fabius, or? It's not necessary.
Just a thank you. We appreciate the board's time, and we really appreciate the staff's efforts in getting us to this point. So thank you to everyone.
OEC, any closing comments or statements?
Further, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That concludes this proceeding. This matter will be put before the board for a vote later today during the Bureau of Licensing portion of the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair. Thank you, board.
We will now hear from Rivers Casino Pittsburgh on their petition for approval of a reduction in their slot machine count. My name is Mr. Donnelly. I would ask that if you have any non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today, that they be sworn in by the court reporter.
Yes, Mr. Barnett?
Do you swear from the testimony that there will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I would also ask that if you are presenting any testimony that you state and spell your name for the court reporter. Okay. All right, Rivers Pittsburgh, you may begin.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for entertaining us today. With me is Andre Barnaby, who is the Assistant GM at Holdings, what we call Holdings Acquisition Co., a kind of a holdover name, but Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. We're before you today requesting approval to remove 97 slot machines.
Sir, would you just state your name and spell it for the court
Yes,
reporter?
John Donnelly, Donnelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're seeking a reduction of 97 slot machines from the floor of Rivers Pittsburgh, which will result in 2,324 machines afterwards. The purpose of this reduction is entirely economically driven, which is what all gaming is driven by, economics, and maybe I might want to comment on Commissioner Musso's question about skill games later on. It has been through a very thorough investigation, our request, by the Financial Investigations Unit. I understand there's no objection from the Office of Enforcement Counsel or the Financial Investigations Unit. And we're here today to present Mr. Barnaby a short PowerPoint to address the rationale behind this movement and to assure this board that this will have no adverse effect on our revenues, we wouldn't be doing it otherwise, or the state's tax revenues. So with that, I'd like to present Mr. Barnaby, and I might have a few follow-up questions for him.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andre Barnaby, ANDREBARNABEI. All right, we're here today, and the purpose of our request, as John mentioned, is the removal of the 97 outdated and underperforming slot machines designed to create a better guest comfort and different spacing throughout our property, taking us from our current count today of 2471 to our proposed count of 2324. The purpose, again, is to increase revenue and our guest satisfaction throughout the property. Some information on these games. The average age of these 97 slot machines is 12 years old. 52 of these 97 machines were Aristocrat games that were impacted by a software revocation at the midpoint of last year. So we had to change out the themes in those units because there were some matters that they weren't approved in the state. As a result of that, we did have to change, I believe it was 208 games, 52 of which will be on this removal list. With the limited replacement themes that were available for those units, those 52 machines are earning 46% less GTR year over year. The proposed 97 machines are at an age where manufacturers today have stopped supporting the hardware and the software, seizing our ability to improve the performance of those units. In 2022, Rivers Pittsburgh has invested $4.5 million in capital to purchase new slot machines, and we still have some of those arriving, hopefully by the end of this year. The slot machine size, as manufacturers continue to develop larger slot machines, and I have some images to share with you, designed to attract players, we must maintain some openness and sight lines throughout the floor. One of the other things that we're looking at is the oversupply and underutilization. We feel that we maintain more than sufficient slot machines to meet demand, even at our peak times, and I'll share some further information about that. We do not believe at all that this will reduce any revenue, and has not in the past. And one of the other things we're trying to combat is the cost of these underperforming slot machines. Cleaning them, electrifying them, finding parts for them, dropping the boxes from them every day. Those are all things that have to be done when we don't feel they are needed at this point. And then lastly, there'll be less clutter and a more spacious floor, which hopefully encourages more play. So preferred slot banks have changed over time. Slot machines, the reductions have allowed us the opportunity in the past to create layouts that give a more enjoyable gaming experience. And you see some images there. Adding more carousels in the top photo and smaller banks in the bottom photo allow us, our guests, easier access and provides more personal space for comfort when gaming. Smaller banks of machines also create less congestion on the floor, allow our guests a better field of vision, and allow them to see the different game content that we have available. Carousels in smaller banks also help to create more desirable end seats and less efficient middle seats. The slot machine sizes today, it's interesting. As the manufacturers continue to develop them, they just continue to get larger. If you look at some of the legacy slot machines on the left, their traditional heights were, as an example, 53 inches by 22 by 15. And today, an example, 97 by 27 by 28. They just simply take up more space. And when you look at them in the traditional straight banking style, as those two images display, you know, the legacy games, you actually have some visibility around them and through them. The new games kind of creates like a wall. And we've heard and we believe from our guests that it's less desirable. It just does not create that great experience and also limits their ability to see anything else that's behind it. Oversupply and underutilization. And this was updated from when we had initially submitted the petition, I believe back in August, just with some more current data, but same analysis. On the left-hand side there, basically what you're seeing is we looked at, from the range of July of 21 through June of 22, what were our 5 highest days in coin-in? And we have those illustrated there in the blue bars. And then we also looked at what our occupancy was at the highest point during those days. And our slot system can tell us at any time how many people are actively playing and how many games are in play. And we record that manually every hour. And what you see is throughout those 5 days, we were at max 72% occupied on the highest, which was 11/26 of 21. So what does that look like during the week and the weekend? That's our right-handed chart. So our peak occupancy in any 1 hour period, our weekday was that 11/26, which was a Friday, and it actually happened around noon. And it was a promotion-based offer where we did a promotion that was a time-based offer, and that's what drove that. And then our weekday non-traditional or non-holiday was 45%. So during that period. So from July of 21 to June of 22, our slot occupancy in any 1 hour period can range from less than 1% to that maximum I illustrated at 72%. During that time period, there has never been a day where there have not been at least 715 slot machines available for play. Our average peak occupancy during the weekend, more than 1,400 slot machines were available for play that were not utilized, and our peak occupancy during the weekdays, more than 1,800 slot machines were available that were not utilized. I won't bore you through the chart here, but the story here is this is all public information. Yeah, our GTR and our number of slot units obviously are dynamic and have changed over time. And what this illustrates with the blue and the orange bars are in blue, that's our unit count over a period of July of 21 through June of 22. And the orange is our GTR in that same time period. And you'll see that at points in time where we had lower units on the floor, it did not impact the GTR throughout that time period. And lastly, as a snapshot, one of the challenges we face is our end-of-life machines. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our games are 12 years plus old. And so what that does to us is it puts us in a position where it's difficult for us to find parts and improve the performance of those games. We currently have almost 57% of our games, which are considered end of life. And end of life just, again, simply means we couldn't go out and buy new software to improve it. Parts are very challenging for us to find. So we're trying to improve that, and we have. With our $4.5 million investment this year, once those games hit the floor, we'll be at about a 48% end of life. And our goal with this reduction would get us down to about a 46% end of life. In addition to removing those 97 units, we actually will take the physical parts out of them and allow them to keep our other games on the floor in service, something that's been a challenge for us, especially since the post-COVID state and the lead times and finding materials if you're able to. And with that, I appreciate your time and for listening to our presentation.
Thank you. A couple questions, Andre. How long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry since I was 16. I started back in 1997.
And what positions have you held at Rivers Pittsburgh?
I'm working backwards. I'm currently the assistant general manager. Prior to that, I was the senior vice president of gaming. Prior to that, I was the vice president of gaming. Prior to that, I was the vice president of slots. Prior to that, I was the vice president of human resources.
Will this affected change result in any layoffs of any employees?
It will not.
Does the company have the wherewithal financially and the will to increase slots if the other side of the coin showed up? That is, there was more demand for slots.
We do. And in fact, we plan to purchase additional new games next year, which would give us that leverage if needed.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Enforcement Counsel, do you have any questions?
Just a few follow-up questions. You said there would be no staff reductions. John Crowe for the Office of Enforcement Counsel, CROHE. But would there be any reduction in work hours for the current staff?
There would be no reduction.
Okay. Is there going to be any increase in the smoking areas on the gaming floor as a result of this change?
There would be no change to the footprint of smoking and non-smoking.
Okay. And do you believe that the reduction in slots would reduce revenue at the facility on any level?
We do not.
And do you anticipate that the slot reduction would leave any market demand unmet?
We do not.
Do you have a date that these changes would be completed if the board were to approve this petition?
If approved, we'd look to move as quickly as we could on our part, on an agreeable timeframe, but we believe that we could look at this before the end of the year.
And in your professional opinion, do you believe that the proliferation of unregulated skill slot machines or skilled slot games are impacting Rivers Pittsburgh slot business?
Yeah, look, I've personally seen them. I think we all have. I don't have any data, as was asked earlier, to support whether or not they have an impact on us or not. In my personal opinion, if they're available, I'm sure someone's playing them.
Okay, so you do believe that these skill games are having a negative impact on the brick and mortar casino business?
I believe there would be an impact. To what degree, I don't have any data to support.
Okay, I have no further follow-up questions.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner
Just
Mustio?
one quick question. Has Rivers has Rivers reduced the number of slots in the past?
Yes.
You alluded to there had not been an impact previously.
Yeah, we've had changes in the past. Over probably the past 6 years, that has definitely been a dynamic number across our floor. And previously, we took areas that had a lot of larger straight banks and converted them to the round carousel banks and smaller banks, as we're trying to do here, and had great success in those areas.
Thank you.
Were some of those reductions taken during this year?
We did have some changes this year. Yeah, we had a hotel connector built for our new hotel, and there were some machines that had to be adjusted for those. We had a new area that we focused on around one of our bars where we had bar top gaming units. We removed those to create a service area for our guests to be able to be better served from the bar area. And then we also had an adjacent area to that bar where we took games out and we put in high top style tables that are used for social experience, specifically on the weekends. So yes, we've had some change.
I was looking at your chart, number 8 slide. That sort of gave me an idea that you had some prior reductions. Okay. And you said there was no impact to slot revenue as a result of those prior reductions.
That's correct.
Mr. Strathmeyer.
Thank you. So again, representing the horse racing and agriculture, and knowing that they depend very much so on these slot revenues. So again, making a statement like that it won't reduce revenue, what metric or how are you coming about with that statement that you're comfortable making it to the board?
Yeah. Yeah. When we look at our occupancy versus the demand, we have the ability to dig into and see which games are being utilized and which ones aren't. So once we've identified that we have more supply than we have demand, we're able to identify the specific units that aren't being played. So our goal is to remove those units from the floor, create a better experience where guests have the ability to move around better, see these different offerings that we have, but also create a physical space that's more comfortable. When you sit in the middle of a unit versus on a carousel bank or on a unit that creates 2 end seats, it creates a completely different gaming experience, especially in the times we're in today with COVID and everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, Enforcement Council, do you have a presentation?
The Office of Enforcement Council does not have a presentation to put forth, just a brief statement, if I may.
Proceed, please.
Thank you. The Office of Enforcement Council would like to reiterate that skill games have been raised as a concern across the board at all casinos. It is an issue that has been brought up with each casino that comes before the board for a slot reduction. It appears to be a problem in our industry, and it is having a material effect on the operations of our facilities. With that being said, the Office of Enforcement Council does not have an objection to the petitioner's request. The Office of Enforcement Council does request that the board implement the conditions outlined in the Office of Enforcement Council's answer should it choose to grant the petition.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly, any closing statement?
I'd move the PowerPoint into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
And I would like to address the skill base for a moment, if you will.
Certainly.
Because I feel I'm concerned about this a lot, and I like the question. First of all, let me say one thing. I know there's been some case law out there. There's no doubt in my mind that these, quote, skill-based games are slot machines. It's crystal clear. If you give something of value for a chance to win something of value, you have gambling. And that's what those machines do. And to call them or to hide our heads in the sand, I know you're not doing that, to say that these are skill-based and are not machines is completely wrong. Those are gambling machines or slot machines. That's thing number one. Number two, we don't have any specific statistics, Commissioner. And I think it may be impossible to get statistics because I'm not sure anyone can really calculate what kind of revenues are going to these non-regulated places. But what we do know is the same thing we're here today for. The economics don't change. There's a pie. And by having more of these slot machines out there throughout the Commonwealth, that's not increasing the pie. That's cutting into the pie. And the pie that you have in front of you here, and you saw with Valley Forge beforehand and all of us, you have a pie that creates jobs, that creates and supports the horse racing industry, that supports the local communities that oftentimes is overlooked, and has bricks and mortar jobs for construction workers and others. Like we just built a hotel in our facility. So the proliferation of gaming in the area of what this so-called skill games, we are entirely against. Bud Green, the general manager, testified before the Gaming Oversight Committee last February, as did the industry. And we absolutely are opposed to that proliferation. And we absolutely support, to the extent practicable, this gaming board regulating and being in control of those slot machines.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you. Thank you
Horseman
for the
Council, any
opportunity.
closing statement?
Nothing further. OEC just recommends that the petition be granted with the conditions outlined in our answer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. That concludes this proceeding. We will undertake this matter in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Now, our first order of regular business this morning is the consideration of a motion to approve board meeting transcripts and minutes. May I have a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of the board's August 17th, 2022 meeting?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the August 17th, 2022 meeting.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. We will now hear from Executive Director Kevin O'Toole. Kevin?
Good morning, Chair Smiler. Good morning, members of the board. Today, for my Executive Director's report, I'm announcing the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's launch of a new awareness campaign directed at parents, relatives, and guardians of children who are left unattended in cars or hotel rooms while the adult goes into the casino to gamble. We have seen these circumstances way too often, and this campaign is another plea to these parents and guardians to take their trips to the casino of their choice at times when their children are being taken care of by other responsible individuals. They cannot accompany an adult and be left in a car, or they cannot be accompanied by an adult and be left unattended in a hotel room. This campaign has been developed over a number of months, and the issue has been addressed by the board in numerous occasions over the last several years. But at this time, I would like to recognize and thank our Administrative Director, Claire Yantis, who has provided the oversight and direction of our efforts to address this issue. I would also like to thank the casinos because with a little bit of prodding, only a little bit, they have really improved their processes tremendously to reduce the amount of time that it takes to respond to these incidences. That doesn't mean that every single incident is observed. We're sure that it will happen on occasion and no consequence will occur because nobody has made that observation, either another patron or a security officer or whatnot. But more observations are being made and they're being responded to very quickly, and that is good, but that doesn't solve the problem. So we're continuing our efforts with this new campaign. We thank the casinos for working with us on this campaign and increasing their signage and the other areas that they can help this particular cause. So what I would like to do at this time is ask our Director of Communications, Doug Harbach, to further outline the awareness campaign and to show on the monitors, which we have here in our public meeting room, public service announcements, PSAs, that are part of this campaign. Please note that the PSAs are a serious video because this is a very serious matter. We're not sugarcoating it in any way, shape, or form. We don't want parents or guardians to simply say that they're sorry when a police officer approaches their car or a security officer approaches their car. That's not enough. We want parents or guardians to say, to not leave their unattended children while they gamble. We want them to stop doing that. Although these children knock on whatever, fortunately, there's been no incident that has indicated any physical harm. It's quite obvious, I think, to all of us that any child of a young age who's sitting in a car and has a police officer knock on the window or a security guard knock on the window and their parents aren't there, that's that's tough. And although they're not physically harmed when they go home, I think that is a lasting impression of a negative nature. So we want it to stop, and it is the parents, the who lack the responsibility and leave their kids in cars. So I'm going to have Doug Harbach show you some of the components of this campaign.
Okay, thanks, Kevin, and Chair Smiley and Commissioners, and those in the audience today. I want to walk you through the campaign. I can't overemphasize what Kevin just said and how important this issue has become.
Doug, can you just state and spell your name for the
Okay,
court reporter,
Doug,
please?
Harbach, Harbach.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is why the campaign, these are raw numbers that the Bureau of Casino Compliance has been tracking just since the beginning of 2021. You can see the number of incidents, the number of minors involved, and over in the numbers for the individuals, you can see that number in particular is high in regards to, that's just for this year, 2022. And you can see that the numbers for 12 and under in particular is pretty mind-boggling, because you're talking about, well over 200, 250 almost individuals, children that have been involved with this. So that in itself lends itself to doing a campaign like this. The casinos have been excellent in what they have tried to do in the casinos. I will refer back to a campaign we did a number of years ago when too many underagers were getting into the casinos, getting onto the floor, some gambling, and we had done a program called What's Really at Stake to try to tell these young individuals the issues involving making that bad decision. And the casinos were great with that. They posted posters that we had there, ran social media and so forth. And their efforts so far have been great in regards to their signage. But of course, when you see those numbers, you get to the point of saying, let's do more. And let's take some of the confiscated money that we put into our problem gambling fund and use it for this important issue. Now, the state police, I will credit them, a while back did understand that they were seeing a lot of this issue. This was an image that they put up on their social media. We've also talked to them about utilizing this campaign to help emphasize this out better, and we appreciate their efforts on this. So what I want to show you first is the 30-second PSA that has begun running in the state, statewide in all the major markets. Oops. We'll get it.
Don't be a parent who takes a bad gamble. Never leave your kids alone when you go into a casino.
And as we went through some work with the marketing firm, it became obvious that, you could do a campaign where you could scare individuals, parents, and say you're going to go to jail or something, in that degree. But we decided that we really needed to look at the children that were being affected, and that's what we really emphasized in this campaign. So there is a website you saw at the end there, don'tgamblewithkids.org. This is the image that you'll see there. We'll continue to use those images you saw on the spots, and with the tagline, even if you win, someone still loses. On that website, there's a call to action. So individuals are told, call 911. There's a list of all the casinos and phone numbers to call there. Also, we came to the idea that if a lot of these individuals that are leaving children unattended very likely have an issue with problem gambling. So we incorporated that into it also so that they know the 1-800-GAMBLER number is there, as it is in all the ads. Also, it links to our PA Responsible Play problem gambling site that we have out there, so that we are also providing that linkage in this campaign. So on there also is what's called a toolkit. So the casinos and others out there will be able to go in there. They'll be able to pull down anything from the social media postings, also coasters that can go in the restaurants. I'll show you those in a second. There'll also be posters. There'll also be table tents. Here's a little bit of those. There's posters that would be able to be printed and put up at anywhere that someone wants to, including in the casinos. There are bar, restaurant, and food court signage. The left ones are coasters that can be printed, and also table tents that could be placed. You can see why that's upside down, because that's the way it's printed and then folded down to be turned into a table tent that could be put into any facility to give this warning. So the social media postings, again, that we have up on 4 different social media sites will be available for not only those individuals such as the casinos, but we've already started to see, because we put those up there, we've seen a good bit of these being done by the public and pushed around also, which is what we want to do. So the other thing that comes from that is we took the 30-second ad and we also provided a 15-second ad, because we're doing a push social media campaign to push this all around the state also. It would basically link to people whose profile would link to something that has to do with gambling or likewise, and they would be likely somebody that normally goes to a casino or visits a gambling site and so forth. So these are the 2 15-second social media site PSAs.
Don't be a parent who takes a bad gamble. Never leave your kids alone when you go into a casino. Don't be a parent who takes a bad gamble. Never leave your kids alone when you go into a casino.
So that's our social media ad. And then, of course, we're going to do a lot of earned media. We have already, as you've noticed, and we'll do it again today, there are 7 more on the agenda today to go on the involuntary exclusion list. We have really been pushing out there these incidents. And they've been picked up, and because of that, we've already begun to get some stories on that, and I expect those to continue to, in fact, I'm sitting here today because I sent this press release out already this morning, and I'm already answering some reporters' questions back and forth and getting them some more information. I do want to thank the PGCB team. Claire was mentioned, and I appreciate all of her input. Also, Chris Schroeder, Liz Lanza, Richard McGarvey, and then our marketing firm was Pavone. They came up with some great ideas, including that Las Vegas-type sign that you see in the hotel in the parking lot, which I think works very, very well. So that's my presentation, and I'll have any questions that you have, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions or comments from the board? Oh, yes.
I just want to say thank you so much for you and your team for putting this together. It's such an important issue. We really appreciate it, and I think it'll be very impactful. I hope so.
We do too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smiley?
Oh, wait.
Say, Doug?
Right.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
So the obvious have been reached out to, in my mind, what you just presented, but I would like to extend the Horse Racing Commission and to try to get involved as well, because this is not just your problem, this is our problem. And so I would like to extend our hand to you, and anything you can get to the Horse Racing Commission, I'd like to make sure that they're aware of this campaign and be a part of this, because again, we have our problems on the backside at times, and have some related issues that children are back there that maybe shouldn't be back there, and so this kind of just again highlights what I think is a social problem, and like to be able to piggyback with what you're doing here and offer our help at the Horse Racing Commission.
Great. I'll be in contact with communications. And one thing to emphasize I didn't before is, it is a good point what you're making. There are 2 audiences that we're really trying to reach here. Number one is the obvious, and that's these adults, these parents, these grandparents, these guardians who are going to make a wrong decision. And we want to make them aware that this is a bad decision. The other one is the general public. They're not aware of this out there, and a lot of them go to casinos. And when they see something, we want them to say something. Report this when they see someone in the car. The casinos, again, have done a great job. They stepped up and really, you can see just from the infrared cameras and other things out to detect these in there, but they also need the assistance of the public to help them out and find these children when they're left behind. Okay.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
And I will mimics Sarah. This excellent job. Next, we will hear from Danette Bixler-George, Human Resources Director. Danette?
Danette Bixler-George, DANETTE-BIXLER-George, GEORGE. Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has one motion today for your consideration relative to the hiring of 8 individuals. All of these individuals have completed the background investigation and drug screening process. The following 6 individuals are recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Director of Casino Compliance. First, we have Zachary Brightbill as a casino compliance representative at Park Shippensburg Casino. Then Jeffrey Ivers as a casino compliance representative at Parks Shippensburg Casino. Estrus Charles as a technical field representative at Park Shippensburg Casino. Adam Elliott as a casino compliance representative at Valley Forge Casino and Resort. Adam Tellez as a technical field representative at Presque Downs Casino. And Duncan Catalano as a casino compliance representative at Presque Downs Casino. The following individuals recommended for hire by Heather Warner, Director of Gaming Laboratory Operations. E. John Green has been selected as an electronic engineer in the gaming laboratory. And finally, the final individual recommended for hire is from Paul Morrow, Director of Investigations and Enforcement. That individual is Donald Cosenza Jr. as an investigator in the Southeast Regional Office of the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. Unless you have questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. Now we will hear from Chief Counsel Steve Cook. Steve?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today, the board has 6 petitions before it for consideration. The first petition was heard by the board earlier today during a public hearing, and the remaining petitions will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties.
Steve, can you just state and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Sure. Stephen Cook, STEPHENCOOK.
Thank you.
In each of these matters, the board has in advance of today's meeting been provided with all the documents filed of record prior to today. The first petition before the board is Holdings Acquisition Company, LP's request to modify its gaming floor plan. The board heard from Holdings earlier today during a public hearing. Holdings is requesting that they be allowed to reduce the number of slot machines on its gaming floor by 99 from the current complement of 2,460 to 2,361 machines, representing a 4.02% reduction. After review by the Bureau of Investigation Enforcement's Financial Investigations Unit, the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not object to the relief requested, but proposes that the board impose several conditions which were outlined in its answer. There is also a request by both parties that some of the sensitive information in the pleadings be maintained as confidential. The Office of Chief Counsel does not oppose that request, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Actually, Steve, is it 97 or 99?
I believe it's 99.
If I may, John Donnelly, it's always a dynamic thing, so when the petition was put in, it was 99. In the meantime, in order to put some metal detectors in front, 2 machines were removed by, through the process approved, but were so minimal it didn't have to come to the board. So the number now is 97.
So for the record, it's 97. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant Holdings Acquisition Company, LP's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, subject to the conditions that will be outlined in the board's order. I further move that requests for confidentiality by both parties be granted.
Commissioner Dermody, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next petition before the board is Stadium Casino RE LLC's and Stadium Casino Westmoreland RE LLC's petition for approval of amendments to a shared services agreement. By way of background, in July of 2020, Category 2 licensee, Stadium Casino RE LLC, and Category 4 licensee, Stadium Casino Westmoreland RE LLC, filed a petition seeking approval of a shared services agreement between the two licensees and CG Shared Services LLC, an upstream affiliated company. CG Shared Services provides administrative, corporate, managerial, and operational support to these two Pennsylvania casinos, as well as other properties in the Cordish group of companies. These parties are currently requesting that the board approve amendments to the shared services agreement with CG Shared Services, which will modify the allocation of costs among each of the entities. Stadium avers in its petition that this amendment to the contract will more accurately reflect CG Shared Services' effort in existing and potential developments, including casino operations and cross-property initiatives. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the relief requested, subject to conditions outlined in its answer. And additionally, OEC has no objection to the petitioner's request for confidentiality, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant Stadium Casino RE LLC's and Stadium Casino Westmoreland RE LLC's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and subject to the conditions that will be outlined in the board's order. I further move that the request for confidentiality by both parties be granted.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next before the board is a joint petition from Digital Gaming Corporation USA, Digital Gaming Corporation Limited, SGHC Limited, and Supergroup Limited, requesting approval of a change of control. Digital Gaming Corporation USA is licensed by the board as an interactive gaming operator and sports wagering operator, and it currently provides iGaming and interactive sports wagering services to Live Casino Philadelphia. Digital Gaming Corporation USA is a wholly owned subsidiary of Digital Gaming Corporation Limited, which itself is 100% privately owned by Mr. Charles Burnitz. Both Digital Gaming Corporation Limited and Mr. Burnitz are presently licensed by the board. Supergroup Limited is a publicly traded company, and SGHC Limited, its subordinate company, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Supergroup. In April of 2022, SGHC Limited and Mr. Burnitz entered into a stock purchase agreement whereby SGHC will acquire 100% of Mr. Burnitz's ownership interest in Digital Gaming Corporation Limited, resulting in SGHC becoming the 100% owner of Digital Gaming Corporation USA. The petitioners state that all relevant management, the management team will remain in place, and there'll be no internal restructuring as a result of this transaction. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the relief requested, subject to conditions in its answer, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the joint petition of the Digital Gaming Corporation USA, Digital Gaming Corporation Limited, SGHC Limited, and Supergroup Limited as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, subject to the conditions that will be outlined by the board's order.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next two petitions are requests for removal from the self-exclusion list. Board regulations now allow for an individual who chooses the lifetime self-exclusion option to petition the board for removal from the self-exclusion list after 10 years have elapsed from the date they placed themselves on the list, so long as they complete a problem gambling assessment and follow through on any recommendations made as a result of that assessment. The first of these requests is an individual with the initials BCT. On August 15th, 2012, BCT placed himself on the self-exclusion list and chose the lifetime exclusion option. On March 25th, 2022, BCT filed a petition to be removed from the self-exclusion list, stating in his request that he had placed himself on the list after receiving pressure from his brother to do so. He further stated that he wanted to self-exclude for 5 years, but his brother wanted him to enroll for a lifetime, and he did so against his will in order to keep peace with his brother. BCT has now additionally stated that at present he is financially secure, pays his bills, has a good credit score, and is actually starting his own business. The Office of Enforcement Counsel initially filed an answer objecting to this request because 10 years had not yet elapsed when BCT placed him, since the date BCT placed himself on the list when his request was made, nor did he complete the problem gambling assessment. As I indicated before, both of those things are required. On May 17th, 2022, BCT filed an amended petition which included a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider and indicating that no treatment was recommended as a result of the assessment. 10 years also had passed at the time of the subsequent filing. So OEC ultimately filed an amended answer indicating that they have no objection to the request that BCT be removed from the list as he's met all the requirements for removal.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant BCT's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next is VH's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list. On January 11th, 2011, VH placed herself on the exclusion list, selecting the lifetime exclusion option. On April 22nd, 2022, 11 years later, VH filed her petition requesting removal from the list, stating that her boyfriend at the time encouraged her to place herself on the self-exclusion list, and she did so. VH states in her request for removal that she is now married and would like to visit casinos with her husband. Additionally, in accordance with the board's regulations, she provided a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that an assessment was performed and that no treatment was recommended. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer stating that VH did in fact violate the terms of her self-exclusion twice early in her term of self-exclusion, but that in both occasions she was cooperative when identified as self-excluded on the gaming floor and removed. As a result, OEC has no objection since VH has been on the list at this point in time for over 10 years and has met the assessment requirement, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant VH's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The final petition before the board today is a request for reconsideration of the board's October 19th, 2022 order denying an individual with the initial NJ that person's request to be removed from the self-exclusion list. By way of background, on June 11th, 2021, NJ electronically submitted a request to be placed on the self-exclusion list for a period of 5 years. In June of 2022, about a year later, NJ filed a petition requesting early removal from the list, alleging that she wanted to place herself on the list for only 1 year, but that her mother enrolled her for a 5-year exclusion period without her knowledge. OEC objected to that request. A hearing in this matter was held in July 2022. Both OEC and NJ appeared and presented evidence. NJ testified at that hearing that she suffers from a medical condition which causes tremors, and therefore she had her mother assist her in completing the self-exclusion forms, and that she trusted that her mother would fill out the forms as she had requested, but later found out that her mother had chosen a 5-year option instead of the 1-year option. NJ additionally stated that she's not a problem gambler, she's not a problem gambler, but wanted basically a break from gambling. And now she requests removal from the list since the year she actually wanted had expired. After hearing from the board hearing officer on October 19th, 2022, the board issued an order denying NJ's request for early removal from the self-exclusion list, and NJ is now requesting that the order be reconsidered and that the record be reopened so she have the opportunity to put in additional evidence, including having her mother testify as to the events surrounding her self-exclusion, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant NH request for reconsideration as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and that the matter be referred to the Office of Hearings and Appeals. I'm sorry. Lost my place. And that the matter be referred to the Office of Hearings and Appeals for evidentiary hearing. I further move that NH shall remain on the self-exclusion list until this matter is adjudicated.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, presenting withdrawals, surrenders, and reports and recommendations will be Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman. I'll let him spell his own name because he likes telling people there's two N's at the end.
Chad Zimmerman, ChadZimmermann. The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals or entities: Better Than You, Inc., Glenn Carlson, Finder Media BV, Martha Schussler, Ronan Venture AB, WTA2 LLC, Philip Wouters, and Effective Scale Limited. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objections to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board chooses to grant the request in each case, it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester. These matters are all now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next before the board's consideration are 5 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. Additionally, the persons involved have been notified that the board is considering their matter today, and they each have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any persons who are subject to one of these reports and recommendation would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. The first report and recommendation before the board pertains to Alfie Pelzer. By way of background, Mr. Pelzer has been licensed by the board since 2010. In September of 2020, Mr. Pelzer submitted a renewal application for a Gaming Level 2 employee occupation permit to continue working as an assistant manager of casino games at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. On September 15, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel issued a notice recommending denial of the renewal application for failure to meet financial suitability requirements and an allegation of working for 1 month without a permit due to filing a renewal application late. Mr. Pelzer failed to respond to OEC's recommendation for denial, and on November 15, 2021, the board issued an order denying Mr. Pelzer's renewal application upon default. After receiving the order, Mr. Pelzer, through counsel, filed a request for reconsideration and provided documentation to show he had been granted medical leave under the Family Medical Leave Act and was not able to reply to OEC's notice, and that the financial obligations which are of concern to the Office of Enforcement Counsel had been largely addressed. The board granted Mr. Pelzer's request for reconsideration in December of 2021 and issued him a temporary credential at that time. A hearing in this matter was held June 23, 2022. Prior to the hearing, OEC filed an amended notice recommending denial regarding active liens, foreclosure proceedings, failure to provide child support payment documentation, along with failure to cooperate with the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement to resolve the issues. The Office of Enforcement Counsel, Mr. Pelzer, and his attorney appeared and presented evidence at the hearing. Evidence and testimony presented at the hearing showed that Mr. Pelzer has worked in the casino industry for approximately 19 years, 12 of those years at Harrah's Philadelphia, where he is currently employed as a dual-rate assistant shift manager. Mr. Pelzer served in the Army for several years and was honorably discharged in 1992. He currently helps take care of his brother, who lives with him, who suffered a stroke. Testimony at the hearing also showed that Mr. Pelzer is working to obtain and provide the necessary information requested by the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. Mr. Pelzer suffered some financial difficulties due to being off work for multiple surgeries and also the COVID shutdowns. He is current on his child support obligations and is currently working with an attorney to resolve the lien issues and working with a mortgage company to modify his mortgage loan. Following the hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Pelzer's Gaming Level 2 employee application be approved with the condition that he provide documentation within 3 months showing that he is either paid, entered into a payment agreement, or is actively disputing any liens against him. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and Mr. Pelsner's application may continue in the licensing process, subject to the conditions outlined in the board's order.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Paul John Spadola's report and recommendation is next before the board. In August 2016, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Paul John Spadola on the board's involuntary exclusion list after it was found that on March 5th, 2015 and June 18th, 2016, while playing blackjack at Mohegan Sun, he was observed capping wagers. He was criminally charged in both occasions and pled guilty to 1 count each time. Mr. Spadola requested a hearing on the matter. He did not appear for that hearing, and the board issued an order in March of 2017 placing him on the involuntary exclusion list. In December 2019, Mr. Spadola filed a petition seeking early removal from the list. Mr. Spadola appeared and testified at the hearing. However, the board issued an order denying his request, prohibiting him from seeking early removal. Mr. Spadola filed his current request for removal from the board June 20 of 2022, after the required 5-year period had expired. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to Mr. Spadola's request, and a hearing was scheduled on August 25, 2022. Both OEC and Mr. Spadola appeared at the hearing. OEC testified to incidents that led to Mr. Spadola's placement on the list, and also a December 2017 incident where he was found gaming at Mount Airy while on the list. Mr. Spadola testified that at the time of the initial incidents, he was having a tough personal time in his life. His wife had been diagnosed with cancer. He had been required to sell his tire business and was going through bankruptcy proceedings and a potential tax sale of his home. He additionally stated that he was drinking when he capped the wagers and made a mistake. Mr. Spadola testified that his personal life and finances are better now. His wife's cancer is in remission. He now has grandchildren, and he's making payments towards his bankruptcy and the tax sale of his home was canceled. He provided documentation in support of his testimony. After taking all the evidence into consideration, a report and recommendation was issued by the hearing officer recommending that the board deny Mr. Spadola's request for removal, but permitting him to request removal in 2 years if the board were to deny his petition, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Yes,
Madam Chair, I realize that Mr. Spadola is not here today, but I just wanted to note for the record that I was very concerned that he had a violation in 2017 in which he not only illegally entered Mount Airy and proceeded to gamble, but more significantly that he failed to comply with security when they told him that he would have to turn over his ill-gotten warnings. So I just wanted to say to Mr. Spadola, if he's somehow listening, that he needs to be warned that he needs to be on his best behavior.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that Mr. Spadola's petition be granted and he be removed from the involuntary exclusion list effective December 5th, 2022.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next report and recommendation before the board today stems from a request for removal from the self-exclusion list. By way of background, on February 13th, 2015, an individual with the initials AZ met with a casino compliance representative at Penn National Racecourse and placed herself on the self-exclusion list, selecting the lifetime option. Subsequently, AZ filed a petition with the board June 29th, 2022, requesting removal from the list. A hearing on AZ's request for removal was held on September 8th, 2022. OEC appeared and presented evidence. AZ appeared and testified on her own behalf. Evidence provided by OEC showed that the casino compliance representative conducted the mandatory interview with AZ, explaining the process of being placed on the list, as well as the consequences of the exclusion period options. Thereafter, all paperwork and procedures were completed. AZ signed the acknowledgement form selecting the lifetime self-exclusion period. AZ testified that at the time she decided to place herself on the exclusion list, she was in a toxic relationship and that participating in gaming would be an escape from her home environment. She stated that she went with her partner at the time to place herself on the list in an effort to save her relationship. She also stated that she's now in a better place personally and financially, that she does engage in gaming out of state responsibly, and that she no longer sees gambling as a thrill or a way to get fast money. She also indicates that she'd like to pursue a career as a professional poker player. In accordance with the board's current regulations, AZ provided with her petition the problem gambling assessment form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that the assessment was done and that no recommendation of treatment was suggested. However, it has not been 10 years since AZ placed herself on the list. Subsequently, the report and recommendation was issued recommending denial of AZ's request, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and that AZ remain on the self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next is another report and recommendation pertaining to a request for removal from the self-exclusion list. On June 8th, 2022, an individual with the initials BC electronically submitted a request to be placed on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list for a period of 1 year. On June 22nd, 2022, BC filed a petition requesting early removal from the iGaming self-exclusion list, alleging that he had only wanted to be excluded from iGaming in Pennsylvania and was not aware that being placed on the list may prohibit him from entering and gaming at brick-and-mortar casinos. A hearing in this matter was held on August 30th, 2022. OEC appeared and presented evidence. BC appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearing showed that BC electronically filled out the iGaming exclusion request form, chose a self-exclusion period, initialed and signed all acknowledgments, including a form that stated he reviewed the forms and understood the information that was provided to him, which includes a notice that licensees could ban him from their venues, gaming and non-gaming, including hotels and restaurants. BC testified that he did not read the fine print, that he did not appreciate that his placement on the iGaming self-exclusion list may impact his ability to attend physical casinos, and that he had requested iGaming so that he could quit apps on his phone, given the fact that the pandemic was winding down and going back to casinos seemed like a better option. He further stated that he has obligations that require him to go to casinos, including business meetings and other events. After hearing the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that BC's request for removal from the iGaming self-exclusion list be denied. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that BC remain on the iGaming self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today is likewise a request for removal from the interactive gaming self-exclusion list. On May 16, 2022, individuals with the initials RF electronically submitted on the board's website a request to be placed on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list for a 1-year period. In June of 2022, RF filed his petition requesting removal from the iGaming self-exclusion list, alleging that he only wanted to be excluded from interactive gaming, that he did not realize that he could potentially be excluded from land-based casinos. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to RF's request. A hearing in this matter was held on August 11, 2022. OEC appeared and presented evidence, and however, RF failed to appear for the initial hearing. However, that day he sent an email to the board clerk requesting a new hearing be held, which it was on September 13, 2022. RF appeared and testified on his own behalf at that hearing. OEC appeared and did not provide any additional evidence for the record. During the first hearing, OEC presented testimony from a program analyst of the board's Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling regarding the self-exclusion documents and acknowledgments that RF signed and acknowledged, choosing his exclusion period of 1 year. These documents also acknowledge that he reviewed the forms and understood the information that was provided to him, including notices that casinos could ban him from their properties and other venues, including hotels and restaurants. During the second hearing on September 13th, RF testified that he did not thoroughly read the documents or the statements therein on the exclusion forms, that he had initialed and therefore did not realize he was banning himself from land-based casinos. He also stated that he has not been to a casino in a long time. RF further testified that the time he placed himself on the list, there had just been a death in his family, and he believed he overreacted in choosing to exclude himself. Subsequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that RF's request be denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that RF remain on the iGaming self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Steve and Chad. We will now have the Bureau of Licensing matters presented by Licensing Manager Sherry Morgan. Sherry?
Morning. Morning, Madam Chair,
Good morning.
members of the board. Sherry Morgan, SherryMorgan. Stepping in today for Sean, as you had mentioned. Today's first licensing matter for your consideration is the renewal of the Category 3 license for Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC, doing business as Valley Forge Casino Resort. The license renewal hearing for this entity is now complete. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report regarding the renewal. As a result, the license renewal is ready for your consideration. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order to renew the Category 3 license for Valley Forge Convention Center Partners, LLC.
Cyrus Petrie, P-I-T-R-E, Chief Enforcement Counsel. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the Category 3 license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next is an interactive gaming manufacturer license for Rising Digital Corporation, a Nevada-based company that develops various mobile games, game systems, and platforms. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. As a result of the license approval, is ready for your consideration.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sharon. I'm sorry.
I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order to approve the interactive gaming manufacturer license for Rising Digital Corporation.
And the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
In addition, we have consideration of a VGT establishment license for the Last Minute Mart, Inc., doing business as Last Minute Mart. VGT establishments or truck stops seeking to have a terminal operator license place VGTs at their location. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has now completed its investigation, including evaluation that the applicant meets the VGT establishment eligibility criteria in the Gaming Act. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license Last Minute Mart, Inc., doing business as Last Minute Mart, which is located at 2985 New Butler Road in Newcastle.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next, there are principal and key employee licenses and gaming service provider affiliates and qualifiers. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 7 principals, 3 key employees, 2 gaming service provider affiliates, and 3 qualifiers. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses and certifications.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board grant the principal, key employee, game service provider affiliate, and qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There are also principal and key employee temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary credentials for 3 principals and 12 key employees. I ask the board consider the order approving these credentials.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustia moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Additionally, for your consideration are gaming employee permits, non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 435 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupational permits, and 189 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, there's a recommendation of denial for 3 gaming applicants and 2 non-gaming applicants. The applicants were notified that they were recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time frame. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask the board consider the orders approving the denials.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel continues to request denial in each instance.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board deny the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is the withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 5 key employees, 27 gaming, and 21 non-gaming applicants. I ask the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the withdrawal of key employee gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 8 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustia seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
This concludes the Bureau of Licensing.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
We will now hear from Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 16 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 1 consent agreement, 3 revocations, and 12 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Parks Casino. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Sarah Colasar. Representatives for Parks Casino are present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Good morning, Karen Ashford, Chief Legal Officer of Parks Casino.
Could you spell your name? Thank you.
KARINASHFORD.
Good morning, Grace Flanagan, Associate Vice President of Legal and Regulatory Affairs for Parks Casino.
Could you spell your name, please? Spell your name, please.
Flanagan, I passed up the note with everybody's name spelled for the court reporter. It's Flanagan.
Well, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Fain, Stevene Fayne. I'm Vice President of Table Games at Parks Casino. Good morning.
Good morning.
Board members, my name is Gerald Fretz, FRETZ, Director of Security, Parks Casino.
And I would just ask if anybody is a non-attorney who plans to present any evidence that you stand to be sworn in by the court reporter, please.
I do. I swear.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning, Sarah Kolesar, Kolesar, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This proposed consent agreement involves an individual who was under the age of 21 when he gained access to the gaming floor at Parks Casino. On August 15, 2021, an underage individual who was 18 years of age at the time of the incident arrived on property in a companion's vehicle. While security was checking the identification of his companions, the underage individual was allowed to enter the gaming floor without being asked to provide identification. During his time on the gaming floor, the underage individual approached a craps table where table games personnel requested his identification. The underage individual provided the table games personnel with a legitimate identification belonging to his brother, who was also underage, being 20 years old at the time of the incident. Table games personnel returned the identification and allowed the underage individual to place 2 wagers for a total of $50 before identifying the individual as a person under the age of 21. In total, the underage individual was on the gaming floor for approximately 11 minutes prior to being identified by casino personnel and removed from the gaming floor. The underage individual gamed for approximately 7 minutes of that time. As a result of this incident, the underage individual was criminally charged, and 3 security officers, as well as 2 members of the table games personnel, received coaching and written counseling related to this matter. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Parks respectfully requests that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, and that Parks pay a civil penalty of $10,000 as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with this matter. If you have questions, we would be happy to answer them at this time.
Parks, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smiler and the board and staff. Parks just wants to emphasize, we do have a very strong culture of compliance and a strong compulsive and problem gambling plan. We take it very seriously, which is why we brought with us today our top department heads to go over any questions or any concerns you might have regarding the matter. We partner with local groups, including the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania, to promote and support awareness and support for problem gambling. And we do train all of our employees and take it very seriously. Regrettably, this was a case of human error. There were apparently the person came with three partners who sort of screened off intentionally his entry so that the security guards who are trained and should know what to do, unfortunately didn't catch him on his way in. And then regrettably, again, an error occurred when table game staff requested ID, as he was trained to do, but didn't quite look at it carefully enough and regrettably allowed the play to continue. So we're not disputing the facts, but I would indicate that there were some situations that the person did try to hide when he came in with his companions, and it was immediately rectified. The table game dealer sort of noted his error fairly quickly, and he was only on the gaming floor for a very short amount of time before it was rectified, and we immediately provided notice and had him removed.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner?
Thank you. Could you please tell us, as a result of this incident, what are you doing now differently, and hopefully that this won't happen again?
Can I answer that question?
Sure, Steve.
We continue to have quarterly refreshers. We have our annual responsible gaming seminar, which all employees take every year. But in addition to that, our table game staff has pre-shift meetings on a quarterly basis. We've had several of them since this incident. In addition, every new training class for new supervisors, and we are currently in our 4th such session. There's a class in session right now. Since this incident, that's a primary focus of the training, is to make sure that it's not enough to check, to suspect or look at a face and if you think they may be underage, but what the proper protocol is to follow that up. In this case, our employees did not do that. They requested a card, looked at the date, just blanked on the date. There's no better explanation for that. The employee knew it was 2021. He saw a card that said 2000, and he just basically blanked on the arithmetic. Once he found out that happened, he reported it, but by that time, a cash transaction had already taken place, and a minor amount of gaming took place, but we couldn't unwind that. So to answer your first question, we are having regular training since that, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I just have one comment. I mean, I gather this person's brother looked a lot like him, so the ID wasn't necessarily questioned.
Correct.
So it was just the date that was the issue.
The date was the issue. He was off by a couple of months and just failed to do the arithmetic. No better way to say it than that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Enforcement Counsel, you have anything to add?
Nothing further.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to ask if we can have a motion.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Greenwood Gaming and Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Parks Casino as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
The next three matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation of employee registrations or employee occupation permits previously issued by the board. The complaints in each matter have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Elizabeth Bohm, Assistant Enforcement Counsel, BOEHM. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Matthew Haddle. Mr. Haddle was previously employed as a dealer and a security officer by Mount Airy and as a dual-rate dealer by Mohegan Sun. Mr. Haddle applied for a Gaming Level 2 Employee Occupation Permit, or G2 permit, in association with the floor supervisor/dealer position at Mount Airy. During the course of the Bureau Investigation and Enforcement's background investigation for Mr. Haddle's G2 employee permit, BIE discovered that Mr. Haddle was terminated from Mohegan Sun for sexual harassment and/or misconduct. Further, Mr. Haddle failed to cooperate with BIE's investigation into this matter. Mr. Haddle is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Matthew Haddle.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Matthew Haddle's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda, Kelsey Scrotto, SCI, RRO, TTO, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Victor Basco. Mr. Basco was previously employed as a slot technician at Harrah's, Philadelphia. While Mr. Basco was a patron at Valley Forge Casino, he stole a patron's voucher from a slot machine. The voucher was worth approximately $168. Mr. Basco left the casino and then returned approximately 46 minutes later after being contacted by police. He paid back the $168 and was not arrested for the incident. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Victor Basco.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Victor Basco's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Owen Jones. Mr. Jones was previously employed as an EVS supervisor for Team Clean Inc., a certified gaming service provider associated with Live Casino Philadelphia. While Mr. Jones was working at Live Casino Philadelphia, he stole a patron's wallet, which had fallen onto a chair. Police spoke with Mr. Jones, who admitted to taking the wallet after the wallet was discovered with $500 missing. Mr. Jones made restitution in the amount of $421. Mr. Jones was charged with misdemeanor theft and related charges. Mr. Jones is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Owen Jones.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the revocation of Owen Jones' non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of their inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Once again, Kelsey Scrotto with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Robbie Dondi Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Dondi attempted to enter the Valley Forge Casino Resort gaming floor with his 2-year-old daughter. Security denied him entry, and he returned to his car with the child. He drove to a different area of the parking lot, left his daughter in the car, and entered the casino floor. A different security officer was posted at the time of his entry. Security approached the car approximately 3 minutes after Mr. Dondi left it. He returned to the car after 6 minutes. Mr. Dondi was evicted and cited by the Upper Marion Township Police Department with summary leaving a child unattended in a motor vehicle. The status of the case is unknown. At this time, OEC requests that the board place Robbie Dondi Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Robbie Dondi Jr. to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Assistant Enforcement Counsel Steve Gorman, Gorman. The next two matters on the agenda are related on our requests to place Lashy Burns and Damon Sutton Glasgow on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I'll read one set of facts for each and then request that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. Lashy Burns and Damon Sutton Glasgow left a 7-year-old child and a 2-year-old child unattended in their vehicle in the parking garage at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino while they placed wagers at a sportsbook kiosk. The children were discovered by an off-duty casino employee who reported the finding to Harrah's security. Security arrived at the vehicle within 3 minutes of notification. The children were unattended for 12 minutes. Chester Police Department and the Pennsylvania State Police responded to this incident, but no criminal charges were filed. Both individuals were permanently evicted from Harrah's Philadelphia for their actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Lashy Burns on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the addition of Lashy Burns to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Damon Sutton Glasgow on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Damon Suit in Glasgow to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Melissa Foster on the involuntary exclusion list. Melissa Foster left a 15-year-old child unattended in her vehicle in the parking garage at Harris Philadelphia Casino while she played slot machines. The child was discovered by Harris Security. Ms. Foster left the child unattended for 7 hours and 17 minutes. During that time, the child drove the car off the casino property and returned to the parking garage over an hour later. The Chester Police Department responded to this incident, but no criminal charges were filed. Ms. Foster was permanently evicted from Harris Philadelphia Casino for her actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Melissa Foster on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Melissa Foster to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Neil Jackson on the involuntary exclusion list. Neil Jackson attempted to access a PGCB Bureau of Casino Compliance computer terminal that was located in the outer office inside Harris Philadelphia Casino. Mr. Jackson was discovered by an on-duty casino compliance representative within 11 minutes of arriving. Mr. Jackson claimed that he worked for the PGCB and that he was sent by the central office in Harrisburg. Mr. Jackson was unable to provide any employee identification. The Pennsylvania State Police responded and determined that Mr. Jackson had an outstanding warrant from New Jersey and took him into custody. No criminal charges related to this incident were filed. There was no damage done to the computer. Mr. Jackson was never able to get past the login screen, and Mr. Jackson was permanently evicted from Harris Philadelphia for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Neil Jackson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? This is a case where he was extradited back to New Jersey, right?
That's correct.
So he's not in Pennsylvania. All right. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Neil Jackson to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Sean Schweitzer on the involuntary exclusion list. Sean Schweitzer left the 13-year-old child unattended in his vehicle at the parking lot at Presque Isle Downs Casino while he placed sports wagers at a sportsbook kiosk. The child was discovered by Presque Isle Security. Mr. Schweitzer left the child unattended for 21 minutes. The Pennsylvania State Police responded to the incident, but no criminal charges were filed. Mr. Schweitzer was evicted from Presque Isle for 1 year. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Sean Schweitzer on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Sean Schweitzer to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Michael Rowland, ROL A&D with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Larry Narasingh on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Narasingh assisted his 11-year-old daughter with playing slot machines at Mount Airy Casino Resort. Mr. Narasingh inserted a $100 bill in a slot machine, and the minor began to play. The minor played for approximately 30 minutes at 10 different slot machines. The minor was on the gaming floor for approximately 2 hours. Mr. Narasingh was charged by the Pennsylvania State Police and entered a guilty plea to unlawful for persons under 21 to wager or play slots. Mr. Narasingh was permanently evicted from the Mount Airy property. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Larry Narasingh on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the addition of Larry Narasingh to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Naomi Toussaint on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Toussaint and her two 13-year-old children gained access to the gaming floor at Mount Airy Casino Resort. While on the gaming floor, the minors each played a slot machine with money supplied by Ms. Toussaint. The minors were on the gaming floor for over 23 minutes. During that time, one minor was involved in 19 total slot machine spins and played slot machines for approximately 4 minutes. The second minor was involved in 2 total slot machine spins and played slot machines for approximately 1 minute. Ms. Toussaint was charged with unlawful for persons under 21 to wager or play slots by the Pennsylvania State Police and was permanently evicted from the property. The charges remain pending. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Naomi Toussaint on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Naomi Toussaint to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thomas Monahan, Monaghan, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Miguel Osorio on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Osorio stole a wallet that was dropped on the gaming floor by another patron at Valley Forge Casino. Mr. Osorio was criminally charged and permanently evicted from Valley Forge for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Miguel Osorio on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Miguel Osorio to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Mr. Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Brian Rozank on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Sir Rozank assaulted and stole a purse from another patron in the parking garage of Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh. Sir Rozank was criminally charged and permanently evicted from Rivers, Pittsburgh for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Brian Rozank on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Brian Rozank to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Juan Sanchez, JUAN, Assistant Enforcement Counsel, Office of Enforcement. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Maria Hernandez Salinas on the board's involuntary exclusion list. While Ms. Hernandez Salinas was a patron at Valley Forge Casino and Resort, she entered the casino resort with 2 other adults and 5 children. The ages of the children at the time of the incident were a 1-year-old, 9 years old, 10 years old, 14 years old, and the 5th child was an infant. Ms. Hernandez Salinas left the children unattended inside the casino resort food court for 72 minutes while she played slot machines. Ms. Hernandez Salinas was permanently evicted from the casino, but no criminal charges were filed as a result of the incident. The minor children did not enter the gaming floor. At this time, OEC requests the board place Maria Hernandez Salinas on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Maria Hernandez Salinas to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Edwin Taylor on the board's involuntary exclusion list. While Mr. Taylor was a patron at Presque Isle Downs Casino, he left 3 children unattended in his vehicle for 16 minutes while he went inside to play sports wagers. At the time of the incident, 2 of the children were 6 years old, and the 3rd was an infant in an infant carrier. The children were discovered by other patrons of Presque Isle Downs and reported to security. Security immediately responded to the vehicle. Mr. Taylor was permanently evicted from the casino, but no criminal charges were filed as a result of this incident. At this time, OEC requests that the board place Edwin Taylor on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the addition of Edwin Taylor to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus. That concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, December 14th, 2022 at 10 a.m. at this location. And now may I please have a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Ralston moves.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I could have asked several questions about that. The unintended table.
It's not like it's Friday.
I don't know if I can.